So I've been thinking a lot about friendships lately and how it changes and evolves over time throughout your life, right? Whenever you're a kid versus whenever you're an adult. Whenever you're a kid, you're in school with all these people that are conveniently the same age. You're all conveniently at the same place at the same time for 5 days a week. You know, you're on soccer teams, sports teams, and it makes it so easy, and these environments are conducive to make friends. And then whenever you get older, you graduate high school and you think, oh, well, I'm still gonna stay in touch with all these people, but you know, do you really? Most of the time you don't. And you know, people go off to different colleges, people move away, people get married, people have kids, and adult friendships are very difficult to navigate. And you might find yourself going from having 10 to 20 friends in school to being an adult and only having 1 or 2 if you're lucky. I think a lot of people as an adult feel lonely, especially in this time, ever since 2020. But even probably before that, I think just being an adult, people just prioritize other things than social relationships, I believe. But as an adult, you know, you're at the workplace, and now whenever you're at the workplace, everybody's different ages. You might have people younger than you, older than you, and the age gap is a lot bigger than what it used to be whenever you're in school, how you're all the same age. But you could still be friends with people that are older or younger than you, but I'm just saying, being in school and everyone's the same age, at the same place at the same time, it just makes it a lot easier to have friends. And plus, whenever you're at a job, you're going there to work and make money. Now, you can sometimes make friends at work, but I think a lot of times people at work tend to be toxic and people tend to look out for their own best interests. But whenever you're in school with other people your age, everyone's there to get through school. They're there to have fun, to make friends, make those memories. So two completely environments versus whenever you're at school as a kid versus whenever you're at work as an adult. But I think for me at least, you know, what I try to do is I try to be intentional now with making relationships. Like, even the relationships I had throughout school, I've tried maintaining those over the last few years, ever since I graduated. And, you know, I try to put forth the effort and maintain those friendships, but it seems like it's one-sided. And a lot of other people don't reciprocate. That's one thing I've really learned getting older, is that a lot of people don't put forth the effort or reciprocate. So if things are gonna happen, you need to be the one that puts in the effort. You can't expect other people to put in that effort, right? If you're waiting for other people to put in that effort, you might be waiting for a long time. So that's one thing that was tough for me that I had to learn, and now I'm okay with that, because I realized that a lot of people as an adult, they either don't have friends, people might be socially awkward, people might not know how to really make friends or even carry on conversations. I think that's something that's really gone down the drain, is people just don't know how to keep a conversation going nowadays. But whenever I, you know, go places, I want to be intentional with making friendships. If I see someone that's really cool and I want to talk to them, I'm going to make the effort to go up and talk to them. For example, I was rock climbing, you know, did something a little bit out of the comfort zone. I haven't been rock climbing in about 10 years or so, but I went to this indoor rock climbing gym because I wanted to try it again. And I went with this guy that went to my church, and we went to this rock climbing gym. And there was another guy there, and what I noticed was he had on a shirt, the same shirt that I had, right, from a national park. And I decided to be intentional and make a comment about a shirt and be like, hey, you know, I have the same shirt. And so we ended up talking, and we ended up, you know, hanging out at the rock climbing gym. He joined us for rock climbing, and we hung out for at least 30 minutes or an hour. We had some good talks, and I got to know him a little bit. But it's things like that. Whenever you see someone cool, that looks interesting, right, that you think you might get along with, make the effort to talk to them, because you never know where these conversations are going to go. And I'm really glad that I talked to him, even though like we didn't swap contact info and hang out again after that. It was still nice to talk to him. But there's other people that I've met that I was able to talk to, and we swapped contact info, and we ended up hanging out, you know. But I think a lot of people, whenever they meet someone new, even if they think they're cool, I think a lot of people just don't make that effort to say, hey, do you want to hang out sometime? Let's swap info and let's get together sometime and do something. But even with that, you know, you can swap contact info with somebody. And what I found out too, right, is, like I said, I want to be the one that makes the effort, but a lot of times you find out that they ghost you, right? They might respond for a little bit, then they just kind of stop responding, or you might hang out once and then after that you just don't really hang out anymore. And it's like, it makes you wonder, you know. But I know everyone has their own thing going on, everyone has their own responsibilities in life, and you know, people can change. So another thing too is you kind of have to just be comfortable in your own skin, like just being by yourself, just like I am right now going for this walk, because you can't always rely on people to do things with you or do things for you. So if you can be comfortable with yourself, then you know, you're gonna enjoy things a lot more that way. But life is always better with other people, experiencing things with people, but it's just different as an adult. So I'm curious to know if you guys are going through a little bit of a similar challenge with adult friendships and navigating that, and how it's hard to make friends. Like, if you put yourself out there and if you talk to people and you ask questions, that's the biggest thing too, is ask questions to people, right? That's how you keep a conversation going. A lot of people don't know what to say next, but just ask a question, be genuinely curious. And once they say something about themselves, ask a question about that. Keep exploring the topic deeper, ask deeper questions. And you never know where that conversation might go. But I think a lot of people lost the art of just being genuinely curious. I think people love talking about themselves, but a lot of people just don't ask questions about the other person's life. You know, what's your hobbies? Ask people what their hobbies are. What do they love to do? What gets them up in the morning, right? Ask them what their dreams are. Ask them, you know, things that people don't usually ask others. A lot of people tend to just talk about superficial topics, things that don't usually matter. And a lot of people fail to go deeper in the relationship and ask questions that do matter, to where you can really get to know somebody. I think a lot of people are afraid of what the other person might think. You know, they're just afraid of exploring the topic deeper because they don't want to offend anybody. We live in a time where people don't want to offend each other, or they just don't want to seem like awkward or creepy or whatever. But you know, with human connection, like, you have to ask deeper questions to get to know somebody. And if they don't really want to talk about you know, deep topics, or really let you in on their, you know, their personal life and kind of let you know them more, then maybe they're not someone that you need to be around. Because really, you can't get to know somebody unless you talk about the deep topics, right? Like, do you want to be hanging out with somebody that's just talking about superficial things all the time? I mean, at first you're going to start talking about superficial topics, and that's normal, right? You got to break the surface and have an icebreaker. But you know, throughout time, you don't want to just get together and just talk about the weather and sports and things like that. I mean, you want people that you're able to talk to about your hopes, your dreams, your passions. You know, what's bothering you. You know, you want people to be there for you for that, and you want to be there for others. And I think that's what makes life really deep, is whenever you have these deep kind of conversations with people, you really have that connection at that point. At least for me, I mean, I'm just at that point to where I'm not really interested in the whole superficial topics anymore, right? There's just a point where it's just kind of draining, and I don't know, like, you can have some good talks with people, just meeting someone randomly, but then if you kind of leave without swapping contact info, it's like, you think about it, you never see that person again, and it's kind of a crazy thing to think about. But for me, like, I want to be intentional, and actually, if I see someone cool, I want to make sure I get their contact info so we can hang out again in the future. You know, or else that's just a missed opportunity where you could have really gotten to know someone and they could have ended up being your best friend. But anyways, yeah, it's just crazy to think about how friendships change and evolve over time, and how you You lose a lot of friends getting older. It's a lot tougher to make friends, and even the places to make friends too. I know I talked about earlier how I'm more intentional now with making friends the places that I go, and you never really know where you're gonna make friends. But maybe if you're in your if you're in your teens, you're gonna make friends at different places than you are whenever you're like 20 or 30 years old. Like I said, I went to the rock climbing gym recently and I met someone that was really cool there. And even though we didn't swap contact info, that was a cool place to meet people that were in their 20s and 30s. So anyways, I'm curious to know what you guys think about this topic. How many friends do you have now as an adult? Feel free to share that in the comment section. And are you intentional with your interactions with people, with making new friends and having those meaningful conversations with others? Let me know in the comment section below. And if you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. And if you have a topic idea of things you want me to talk about in the next video, make sure to let me know. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.